I guess we're live, and we'll still wait before like getting into the um, main conversation. We can just wait a little bit to see if more people will join. Um, uh, so it's this stream is more like part of the regular schedule, I'm guessing. And my name is Kirill, or like you can say Kirill in English. And I have Wouter with me, or Wookie.
Yeah.
And he was my
Or
apprentice.
Wouter.
Yeah, Wouter. Yeah, Wouter. Uh, he was my apprentice while I was making this upcoming course for Learn Squared. Oh, there you go. Yes, people are joining back. And So basically, the goal of this live stream is just to give you a heads up about the course a little bit ahead of time. But I'll just take 5 minutes to explain what's going on, and then I will be taking questions. We can go through. Yeah, there you go. Like we can go through what I do, what Wouter does. Like we'll talk about like why it's important to learn fusion in my opinion, and why did I make the course, and then why Wouter decided to take it, because that's the whole point of Learn Squared, right? Like you have one voice that's sharing, and then one voice on your side, like on the side of the viewer, on the side of people who are taking the course, so that it's a better insight into what's happening. But anyway, hello, hello. Let's talk about what the course is about, and why, and who it is for. The course is going to be called Hard Surface Modeling. Well, also, like, let me introduce myself for people who don't know me, because it might be like probably 99% of you. My name is Kirill Chepizhko. I work as a concept artist and industrial designer. I have background in video games and VFX. I've worked on several video game titles, AAA titles. One of the recent ones just came out, Lawbreakers from Bosky. I also worked on this movie called Star Wars Rogue One while I was at Industrial Light and Magic. And I worked on Transformers a little bit. I worked on Kong, Skull Island. Just in VFX, my position was just a 3D artist doing production work. But what I do in everyday life is привет. Sorry, I said hi in Russian for people who are watching it in Russian. So we're gonna actually subtitle everything in Russian now.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. I don't want to switch in between languages, but I mostly like in VFX. I worked in production, so like sub D poly modeling, which I know and like now, but I had to learn it from scratch like in 2015, 16. But mainly I work in CAD, and this is the point of the course as well. We're going to be uh, working completely in CAD, and the reason for that is because CAD is great for it's not good for production. I'm just gonna say that. It's great for concepting, and it's great for visualizing the product. It's great for like rendering static images. Basically, you can do animations with CAD and stuff. Of course, the main purpose of CAD is production, like not production in terms of VFX, but manufacturing, like making it real, and that's where all the limitations come from. Um, Sneaky course reveal, yeah. Um, not a course reveal yet. Like we're just like, we're talking about just fusion for now. Like I would be happy, first of all, just to talk like design and hard surface with Wouter, and and then like I would be happy to answer any of your questions about like should I learn fusion, or like what is fusion, and then like if I'm interested in hard surface modeling, where should I start? Um, but tell me, let's hear about her. Why were you interested? Like, why are you interested in fusion from the point of view of hard surface?
Okay, so I mean, the my issue has always been with 3D modeling is that I'm not that good at it, and like the as a concept designer, it gives me more frustration, and I'd rather just draw stuff like with regular modeling, so polygonal modeling. And then the great thing about um, CAD and Fusion 360 is just the ease of use when you're creating hard surface. So the way you do booleans, that you can just subtract stuff and add stuff. Don't have to worry about whether the polygons match or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it, at least from a concept design point of view, so much more inviting to use it in my workflow.
I mean,
Uh,
totally, because I feel like there's, how ZBrush started back in the day. There
mm,
was, I like this analogy I heard from somebody. I think it was Ryan Kingsling and someone who said that it's a spectrum of from organic modeling to hard surface, and like all kinds of like on in the regular production. And ZBrush started on the extreme left with organic, and then it
yeah,
started closing up the gap to hard surface. And now they actually with like 4R8, they're finally back to like awesome Boolean system, and it's very useful. But like I'm not very tempted to switch completely to ZBrush because I still feel like ZBrush, started in a different place. So for
yeah,
me, for manufacturing, for 3D printing, ZBrush is great, but I'm separating the tools, and
yeah.
I will still use ZBrush for a lot of stuff. But what I'm saying is, for the in this on this spectrum, Fusion started on the completely opposite end, and it started from all the CAD software that was used in production, like from Autodesk Inventor. It's basically like a clone of Autodesk Inventor, I think, that
Mm.
taken into being much more simple and easy to use, and it's extremely easy to use. Like you experienced that on
Yeah, man,
for
for
like
sure.
for yourself.
It's
It
good.
only
It's
takes
good to pick up.
a week to pick up overall, like just the UI and stuff, get used to it. Um,
Yeah.
and then let me raise your audio a little bit. They're saying it's boom. Yeah, look, basically it's closing the gap as well. So they meet somewhere in between, like Fusion and ZBrush, and it's completely different. Both ZBrush and Fusion are not poly modeling. The only poly modeling that's popular out there is like maybe Max Maya Blender. I don't even know if there's anything else. And
Mm.
just for people who don't know, what happened a couple of years ago is people started using CAD because that's how it's supposed to be done for hard surface. Like literally, all things in real life that are hard surface are manufactured either through computer aided design, which is CAD,
Mm-hmm.
or manually. But still, this is you're taking like you're going to the back to the correct roots, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like ZBrush imitates clay, Fusion in concept art imitates manufacturing, although it's actual manufacturing. Like I can take this gun, and if my sizes were correct and I wasn't so lazy, I can probably like scale it up and print it out. Plus, it's a cool thing that you can like go ahead and like measure stuff. So, for example, the width of this thing is 3.4 millimeters for the scope, and let's say
That's
from
my favorite, man. One of my favorite
do
things
it all
of
the time,
Fusion.
and
The
then like
the
tip to
working in
tip.
measurement. I love it.
Yeah, this is
So cool.
scaled about like 1/3 or so because it's 148 millimeters total. So it's
Yeah.
at this point it's a scale replica, I guess. The actual gun would be 500 millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 5 times. So this is tiny. But in any case, like if I decided to 3D print, easy to blow up, easy to control details, etc.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Um, yeah, well, like I said, if you guys have any questions, that's my like that's why we're here today. I'm gonna answer whatever you want to know. No secrets hidden. I was gonna say no secrets revealed, but like that means completely opposite. Um, yeah, like we're not gonna talk about anything. Um, is Fusion good for designing furniture? That's the question from Twitch. Yes, actually, I feel like a lot of people. Well, Fusion, the way Autodesk sees it, um, is not even meant for concept art at all. So any other area of manufacturing is what it's meant for. So designing every industrial design, literally everyday props, like everyday products, and it goes so much hand in hand with 3D printing. It's insane. Like Vouter,
Yeah,
you can vouch for that, right? Like
yeah, man.
you 3D
I
printed
use it
that
for
stuff.
3D printing. It's
Yeah.
great. It's a
Um,
perfect tool for it, to be honest. With the clearances and stuff, it's it's
do you have that image
works so
handy
well.
of the crate? Like, do you have a digital photo and then like a real photo that you printed out?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's pull it up.
Yeah. I'll drop it in the thing. Let me see.
There's a good question about like deaf friendly lesson forms. Um, I feel like that's an interesting question. I've never heard anybody ask that. I feel like in most cases, whatever is happening on the screen, like will give you about 80% of like understanding what's happening. Like most of the theory that I talk about is definitely not transcribed, so like you'll be missing out on that. But I feel like it's totally possible to like transcribe it. Like if you know if LearnScore decides that maybe they can transcribe videos. But overall, I feel like most digital courses, just like as a generalization, almost all of them are demos that you follow along. So it's definitely good enough to, like to understand what's happening and how to proceed for practice. For theory, yeah, unfortunately, you'll have to get it transcribed.
Mm.
Let's. I'll get to the questions in a second. Let's take a look at that crate. So, this was the crate that Wouter designed in Fusion for the class, right? Like it's or like I mean, while you were taking the class, basically,
Yeah, yeah,
because you didn't know Fusion
exactly.
before. So this was one of your. Was that your first model or one of the first ones?
Yeah, man. I think the second model, the first was from reference, and this was my first own design. Based on from the class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think they have English subs now, but I think it's totally possible. Anyway, let's see. I'm gonna download the second image now too. So this was the second. This is the inside of the crate with this fucking awesome structure inside the support structures. And this you designed this to scale, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So the scale, but the scale was like not the real scale of the crate. It was scaled to what 1/12, 1/6.
1/6. Yeah, it's for like a 1/6 figure. So
Okay, for
and
like
I designed it with that in mind.
the regular. What is that? Regular action figures or slightly bigger, right?
Yeah, a 1/6 is regular for that. It's a category, I guess. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
category of
Yeah,
figure
like 1/6.
sizes.
And then so this was his digital model from Fusion, first model, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm gonna download another image right now, real quick. Um, and
Maybe you
then
should download the second something like
this is crazy how it turns out. What was the method for printing? Was that SLA?
that. This was SLA on a Form 2 printer, and
Okay.
then I painted it and primed it and painted it.
It's insane. Everything is accurate. Look at that, like how everything fits and works, which what
Yeah.
Fusion is good for.
Oh, definitely, man. It was so cool. Like the clearances and stuff, make it infusion
Once you
perfectly.
learn
So
about them, you know what
yeah,
to do.
exactly. Yeah, that was
Um,
super fun.
let's see. That was the second one with this awesome decals and stuff. I'm sorry. I think I just noticed this. But yeah, this is really cool, and
It's a
it's
function, right?
yeah,
Showing what it's for.
yeah, exactly. It's just really really convenient instrument
Mm.
for this in particular, because 3D printing is mimicking manufacturing, and then it's also meant to like speed it up and improve it, and improve rapid prototyping. So once you get into fusion from the point of view of concept art, that's one thing, but then you kind of like, that's how I started, but then you kind of always want to have more. You're like, oh my god, like I realize the full potential now, like there's so much more that you can do. So oh look,
For
like
sure.
this metal looks incredible. Just looks like metal. That's insane.
Yeah, it's like gunmetal paint
Mm-hmm.
through an airbrush. So
Yeah.
much fun to do that kind of stuff.
And so like this is where you can also combine things, where you do hard surface props in Fusion, you do your character in ZBrush, you do his props and like gear in Fusion, match it and everything. So
Yeah,
once you know how to put this together, like this is an incredible tool. I still don't understand how it's not fully part of pipelines in like VFX. It is now a little bit, but not as much as it would potentially, be.
yeah.
Um,
For 3D printing and stuff, it's works so well. You can just export an STL
mhm.
and print it right out. You know, it's great.
Let me get back to answering the question, as we're like I'm a little bit behind. So,
Sure.
how heavy the model might be in Fusion, for example, if you model high detailed mech. Do you need to do only parts and assemble it later in other software? Because I've seen relatively simple, clean models done in Fusion, weapons, props. So yes, like even this gun, I treat it as an assembly. It really depends on how you look at things. This gun is an assembly of a scope that was modeled in a separate file, and then muzzle brake, and then this component, and then the rest is the other one. It doesn't need to be. Fusion can handle relatively heavy stuff. I have like another one open, like more or less detailed as well. This platform, and at one point I even animated it, so like a simple version of that. But for like mechs and huge assemblies, it just makes sense to organize your files properly and break them down. The meshes from Fusion are heavy, but again, you never put them in the engine. Maya will choke on them a little bit, but like it will take them. So I've had experience of combining both sub D modeling and Fusion parts in Maya, and then rendering perfectly. So there are no issues there. The geometry comes out triangulated, um, and like I have on my Gumroad, I have a lot of parts that I sell that are just like kit bash parts. All of them are fusion, but then they're OBJs, they're triangulated OBJs, and then you can do whatever you want with them. Like there's no point of getting that low poly count, because Keyshot can handle anything, and most renderers like will.
Mm.
Um, but you can design anything in it, like from furniture to guns to mechs to like environments. It doesn't matter. You just need to have the right approach in terms of organizing your scene structure and files. Let's see. What was the level that I can get from the course? Will it be helpful if I already know some basic modeling in Fusion? I feel like it's always like, um, if I know something and then that would be the basic level, this course would be basic to intermediate. It's like a nice step up,
Yeah.
since I'm not only talking about user interface. User interface is like a out of maybe 8 hours or so, or 10 hours total. It's about like hour and a half. So that would
Mm.
be basic interface, and then we get into how to model this gun, and then as I'm explaining how to model, I get into a lot more details because without those details, you know, when you model a finalized prop, you have to dive into more intricacies of the UI, to a lot more into CAD logic, like how things are done. So I would say this course is still beneficial for you if you already started modeling in Fusion, unless you show me your models and I'm like, whoa, dude, like show me your art station.
Yeah.
Uh, so like in that case, you can, even in that case I would still say like, yeah, you can get this course because it's always good to see how other people work in the same software. Like I always try to get more and more videos about Fusion or about ZBrush just to see like, oh, like people have different way and it's like it's actually better, or like it might be worse, but you never know. um, okay, let's see.
And also, by the way,
Yeah, go ahead.
after this course, I feel really confident to just make stuff, you know, like after taking the course. So I would say it takes you up to a really good level to just, you know, create what you want, basically.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's how I feel now in tackling fusion.
um, okay, let's see. Can I recommend any books or videos about the basic rules of design? Actually, it's funny because the book that I always recommend, it's called Basic Principles of Design. I'm gonna look it up right now. It's my pocket book. It's really small, and it's like 100. Oh, it's called 120 Principles of Design. Let's see, 120 Principles of Design. It's like, um, come on, where is it? Principles, images. It's called okay, okay. It's called Universal Principles of Design. It's 150, so 30 more. 30 of them are for free, but generally, this is, let's see, like this is what the book looks like. It's a pocket book like this small. It says The Pocket Universal Principles of Design by William Lidwell. 150 principles in there. It's amazing. Like it's just something where you draw a lot of inspiration from just reading. Like, oh, like let me base my design or let me use this design principle in my current project. You know, it's something that I go to constantly, or like when I have nothing to do, I'm like flipping through this book. Even though like I'm familiar with, I would say, I don't know, like at least 50 of those principles, and it's principles like rule of thirds, like the golden section, and then 80/20, the Pareto principle, and stuff like that. So it's a good starter to just like, you know, when you're trying to search for more information for something, but you don't know what it's called, you will find that principle in the book, and then you can Google further, and there's like there will be further reading. Um, a link to the book. It's on Amazon, or like if you're in the United States, um, Universal Principles of Design. Let's see. It's actually on Amazon right now. It's $8. I remember getting it for 12. So used as $5. Indispensable. It's crazy good book.
Alright.
It's something that I would recommend like every time when people ask me about a book. Um, it says you can get it on Audible, but like it's actually a book with. Oh, let's flip through it. It's a book with images, so you have to have it as a book. So like for example, see like the 80/20 rule, Pareto principle, and then it's like left side is the text and right side is the explanation how it's applied, and
Mm-hmm.
then like aesthetic usability effect, whatever. Just scroll through it, and there's a lot of stuff in there. 150, like 120 plus 30 for free, like I said. Um, let's see. What was the next question? Um,
Oops.
um, what, what was the best way to export mesh from Fusion? Depending on what you're trying to achieve. I would say that there's like a number of ways. One thing is it's harder, or like it takes some time to export an OBJ directly, but in any regard, like you don't really want that. If you're exporting for keyshot for rendering, you just go to the root of your browser here, and like if you start learning it, you'll understand. Like it's real quick. Right click, export. Local export is not. Oh, well, it's because it's an assembly. So we will do export. And then IGES is a file type for CAD. Step is a file type that Fusion will understand. You can also export separate components like this. So it will be like export a separate component out. That's why it's important to break up your design into assemblies. And then you can also do save as STL. And what save as STL is going to do is it's going to triangulate your mesh. So we're going to make a preview right now. It's going to take a second to generate it. You can set up your refinement, your play with your refinement options. But basically, yeah, so now it's triangulated. This would be like this ugly mesh, which is ugly for production, but it's beautiful for for nothing. It's beautiful for rendering. You don't want to export in STL if you're rendering in Keyshot. It will triangulate by itself from a step file or from IGS file. Keyshot has a better triangulation system. You can also run triangulation through other software like Mesh Mixer, like Moi 3D, Moment of Inspiration 3D. Any of those things, you can do it here as well. So it doesn't really matter. This is what it's gonna end up looking like, but the normal angles and everything is fine. So you should be good for rendering. For concept art, doesn't matter. So like I said, if you want to use it for production, there is a way. You basically just export as high as possible, and then you bring it into Maya or Max for retopo. But for that, you just need a really high poly mesh. Basically, that's all you need. It doesn't matter what it is. You can either bring, you can always bring CAD as well, and just like retopo on over it. Let's see. Will the course be fully about Fusion 360, or do you do some ZBrush and rendering stuff as well? I don't do ZBrush in the course. I do show rendering and post processing a little bit, just as like everybody knows about that, but it's because it's part of the pipeline. I will be showing that. I'm basically showing you how I do stuff from start to finish every time. Um, okay, so link to the book, blah blah. Okay. um, let's see. I also wanted to talk about like if you have any questions about like, hey, like, can we model something right now? We can totally do that, but like something super simple, like how do you model this type of shape? How do you model that type of shape? We can do a little bit of a demo if you want to. And
By the
again,
way,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that the STL export and the other exports then rather than mesh are also great for the 3D printing stuff. That's also what I love about you know
Oh yeah, like any
looks
like
as well.
if we're talking about FDM printer,
Yeah.
like I have an FDM printer, it will take anything. It will take OBJ or STL, and then in its proprietary software, it's going to process it into the layers. For SLA, I'm not sure, but it's still like OBJ or STL or step.
Yeah.
Um, okay, that was the link to the book. Is this class different from Mold 3D class? It is. Like again, we're gonna have a separate stream for talking specifically about like exactly what's in the class. I mean, for now, I can say that like this gun is in the class, right? Like we're making this gun in the class from scratch, from like when you haven't touched the software at all to this. And like I can't say it's super impressive in terms of like fidelity and complexity, but it's a good example of giving you a good understanding of basic principles of design, some basic rules, some general understanding of my pipeline. But will it be different from Mold 3D? Yes, because we're modeling a brand new thing. It's always different because you're always solving very, very particular problems. And plus, when I was doing my Mold 3D class, I was, it was like maybe a year ago, almost a year and a half. So I've definitely learned some stuff, and that's why I try to release courses at least once a year. Just like I'm catching you up on all the latest developments in terms of my pipelines, and in stuff that I learn. I always like to share because one, I learn better that way when you like process. Like Vouter, do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
once you know something and process it into telling about this particular like instrument to another person, you start to understand it better.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Like if you had to like teach somebody about SLA printing or whatever, you would
Yeah,
learn more about SLA printing yourself.
yeah, because you have to give things a name. You can't just do it purely by like a little feel, like a feeling or whatever. You have to make it into an oh man, difficult English words. You have to make it into a, yeah, into a tangible
Uh huh.
thing, that you can convey to someone else to do it. So
Right.
yeah, you learn so much from that for sure.
Um. So the question is it practical to import outside OBJ files to start adding detail and building upon in Fusion, for like quickly modeling base in Gravity Sketch, then adding detail in Fusion? So the peculiarity about this is that when you import meshes are editable, but they do not interact with CAD because we're talking about two completely different worlds. It's possible to convert certain meshes, like quad meshes, into Fusion, like format that Fusion will eat. But when you import a mesh here, uh, I just don't want to go through it because like I might be opening like some sensitive files or whatever. But when you insert a mesh in Fusion, you can edit the mesh in terms of like you can reduce the poly count, you can recalculate the triangulation, you can cut it in half, kind of like prep it for 3D printing, and then also use it for scale. So, for example, I can import a mesh of a human, and I'm not gonna touch the mesh at all, but I'm gonna use it for reference to the single little detail to like build a helmet around that head. So what I'm building in Fusion will not be interacting with the mesh, um, unless we talk about quads and conversion. But that's like such a different story. I've only after like 2.5 years in Fusion, I've only started to like get into that, and it's a little bit complicated. Like it doesn't yield same results every time. But it's great for referencing for sure. Like when you need to match things exactly as well, you can. It's a process, but it's possible. Like let's say I can um, I can scan my ear, import that as a high poly mesh, then I can sculpt around it to like make something like make a headphone in Fusion that will fit exactly into my ear, like into the shape of just my ear, because everybody's ears imprints are different. It's like fingerprints almost. So like the all the little like paths in there. So it's possible to match stuff, but I won't be able to alter my ear basically. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
let's see. So, and speaking about Gravity Sketch, yes, you can totally do that in VR. You take that gravity. Like I know it's gaining popularity right now, but anything from Gravity Sketch is still a sketch, 100%. You're never gonna put that into production straight. So treat that as you can sketch some uh, correct scale mech in Gravity Sketch, and then bring it in, and it would be as useful as several image projections. So like you will have a real sense of understanding where everything is in space, but you will still have to rebuild every detail. It's impossible to take a mesh, a triangulated or OBJ or anything like that, and continue editing this in Fusion, because polygon modeling is different from CAD modeling, and we do talk about that in class.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. Okay, so again, if you, I'm happy to answer more questions about stuff like that in terms of like import, export. Um, let's see, Wouter, what do you have in plans like for modeling? What are you trying to do with Fusion now that you like? It seems like I kind of showed you the path, right? And now
Mhm.
you can plan for your like next models. What do you got?
Yeah. So one of the things I did for the class, Gun, is basically part of a small story, and now I'm designing or starting to design all the other basically hard surface stuff from that story.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like this little flying drone and some, yeah, like some small tools that hopefully will be clear when the illustrations come out. But
But
I
what are
just
you
want to play
designing
around.
for? Like, what is going to be the medium that's gonna like connect the viewer to your story? What are you using?
You mean the end result, like the final
Yeah.
look,
Mm-hmm.
or?
Yeah. Like, how are you gonna present that story? Like, you know, is that gonna be a movie, or is that gonna be like, just images?
Gotcha. Okay, so for this particular thing, it'll be a series of illustrations. But then there's another side that I really want to use Fusion for, and I've already been using it for with the Crate, is the 3D printing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably, aside from the story, like the way I incorporated it into illustration is still a bit, figuring out, but the 3D printing is already in the class such a proven
Mm-hmm.
success, I feel, that that that's probably still my biggest focus to
Mm-hmm.
use it for 3D printing, casting, like, and then painting them.
I used it for casting as well, and it's just I don't know if there's a better way in terms of how easy it is versus
Yeah,
like and how fast you can get your result and how accurate it is. Of course there's
yeah, right.
Inventor. Of course there will always be Inventor and like Katya, that CAD software, and then what's it called, the biggest one, SolidWorks.
Yeah.
All of those are used in huge pipelines in manufacturing, for in like big companies, but for regular people and for smaller companies, I feel like
Hmm.
Fusion does all of that, and it does a lot more than what they offer in terms of they it offers like all those tests on strength tests and simulations,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's getting even more interesting stuff. That's shape optimization. You remember that? Have you seen this?
yeah.
It's in
I think.
simulation shape optimization. It's where they take like this, and they will let the computer. There's a lot of work involved in terms of showing the constraints and points of pressure,
Uh-huh.
but they will
I
take
think you
this.
showed me something about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like a video online. It's just basically like Google for shape optimization for Fusion 360. This is what it's called, and then it will calculate the stress points, and it will
Yeah,
give
yeah.
you this like wonky mesh, but that you will have to rebuild like literally by hand. But it will give you a really nice guide into like this is how it needs to be to maintain structural integrity. And
Hmm.
then this is not the only study. Like as you can see, like static stress, modal frequencies, like how it's gonna wobble.
Yeah, that stuff is so cool.
Engineers are gonna hate me for this. Uh, Thermal stress, structural buckling, nonlinear static, well, I mean, even simulations like I like how they have a bullet here. So a lot of stuff, but like it's up and coming. Some of it is preview, as you can see. Some of it is already in there. It's like cutting edge stuff. It's
Yeah.
fucking insane. Like shape optimization, we're talking about like the level of AI modeling for you. almost like that. I'm exaggerating, but it's crazy. It takes human
Yeah.
input as well, for sure, but it helps you as a concepting tool. This is insane. Like, you
Yeah.
will get structures that nobody else has because you don't think like a computer thinks. You don't know the points of stress and stuff like that. It makes it much more interesting. Plus, everybody's tired of that, like the the regular way to build your like support structures with just like angular 90-degree and 45-degree angles, those
Hmm.
triangle structures.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, of course, I'm like, I sin with that as well. Like, I use that all the time because it's the easiest and it works, and it's based in real life. But this stuff
Hmm.
is if you want to get ahead of people. Let's see.
Yeah.
There's another question. I saw Mache a while ago doing some spline stuff. He snapped one spline sketch to another spline sketch and made a loft or something. And I kind of forgot how he did that, and I couldn't find the video again. You may know how to do that. That is in Patch. So once you go into Patches and then start using splines, I honestly don't connect splines together often because it's not my thing. But I'll show you real quick. Uh, we're gonna have two splines on two different sketch planes. So one was there, the other one would be here. That's probably too curvy for it. So you can edit those splines. Right now you can see that they're in space like this, which means I can also adjust them in space. So we will have like these two weird splines located in space, and then what he did was in patch create. You can just create a patch from this. Oh no, like no, that's if they are closed. That would be a loft. You're right. Loft this to that. So you get this nice shape that's kind of like this other course that's currently out on Learn Squared about concept architecture. They show it in CAD, like Cinema 4D, but CAD is actually not only good for furniture, it's good for architecture as well. It's what I'm using it for sometimes. So let's say
Mm.
this is a chair or like a nice sofa. So we have this face. We will then switch to model, give this face thickness, um, thicken 5 millimeters. Boom. Now it's a solid body. Now you can do more stuff to it, like fillet the edges and
Man,
and
that's cool.
and start turning this into something nice. That's probably a stretch to think that it would be the same fillet, but Fusion will not let you do anything stupid. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, it will
Yeah.
tell you, like, dude, like, you're being stupid right now. This is not polygonal modeling. Are you thinking that like metal can intersect with metal? Like, no. So I like to follow what Fusion says, and like if it's not possible to do, I'll find another way to do it. Not because, oh, stupid software. It's because, dude, like, you're stupid. Like, you don't know what you're doing right now. Fusion knows better. Like, that's how I'm like going with the flow. That's why I never have problems with Fusion. So we have this, and
Yeah.
then we can take it even further and do. Let's see. We're gonna do something like we'll do a construction plane. We're gonna. Can we move that? I remember you were able to move construction planes.
Yeah, I think if you, at least the probably not good way I do it is just make a construction plane. When you make it, then you can move it as you're uh,
As
making a new one.
as you're making it. Well, I mean, it's fine. Like, I can
Mm.
just patch that, and that will be my face that I use. So that's like another way. So I was just gonna rotate this face so that like we can start sketching on this plane like that. And I was gonna make a cut in here that will kind of, I'm gonna do it like this, but it will kind of offset the existing silhouette like that. And this has nothing to do with the course, by the way, guys. Like, I don't teach this in the course. This is just something that I like normally, how I normally model, like what I normally do. This is a little bit more advanced, but you definitely need the course to get to like here to understand the intricacies of this. So we're gonna. I'm just like designing on the fly real quick, but let's see. So we're gonna take this, and the reason I'm using spline instead of a sketch is because as you can see, it's so much easier to adjust the placement of the points, not only on flat surface but in 3D space as well. And we're gonna use this to make a cut through the whole thing. Because like if we're designing that chair or whatever, like I feel like it would need to be a cut from the side and then from the top to, and then there's like other ways to do it as well, to just basically get that like something interesting looking. I didn't quite get
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to get, but it's okay.
It's still,
Uh,
you can still sit on it.
yeah, you can.
Yeah.
That's what she said. Uh, so yeah, like
Just a roll it through.
just interesting stuff like with splines. At least I answered the question about lofting two splines together. Um, and just got in. Okay, sorry if I missed it. Is there an easy way how to export OBJ by not saving every single body by itself? You're not saving every single body by itself. I'll just repeat it for you real quick. Uh, if you have this assembly, you can save out by components. This component has several bodies inside, so just right click in the browser and then save STL. You can save out the whole tree if you've collapsed all of that, if it's not linking. So you don't have to go like body by body. You just go full file, export, use IGS, and then use another program to convert it, or just go unlink these two by like right clicking break link, and then right click in the root of the browser, save as STL. It's gonna maintain hierarchy more or less, and then it's gonna export everything. And then you convert. So like just stick to converting to OBJ outside of the program. Let's see. You can export it with step. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Do you have Keysha? Cool. Thanks. Forgot to do in patch mode. Okay. Design of uncomfortable public admin approves. Okay. Yeah, like shit. Designing uncomfortable stuff is easy. Try designing comfortable stuff. Like this was something we talked about during our feedback sessions with Vouter, and
Yep.
it's like a topic that like will never. I can always talk about it. Is basically like yeah, cool. Like we see all of your crazy detailed mechs on ArtStation, Kit Bash to hell, and then we will look at all this like really nice modeling. But if you want to push yourself, if you want to experience pain and suffering in CAD, try designing something for real life. You will instantly be faced with tolerances, with things being user friendly, with actual dimensions, with material, with
Being able to build something,
yeah, like
actually click it together.
exactly like how do you make this thing fit, and
Yeah.
then on top all of that when you're finally like let's talk about a chair. I always use a chair as an example. Plus we just designed this extremely comfortable sofa to sit on. The chair, like just dude design a chair, and once you get like once you solve all of your problems about tolerances and about design and how cool it looks and about like the material, and then you put it on the market and try to sell it, and you will realize that like, oh shit, like it's really hard to design for public. You, it's cool to design something that the ArtStation crowd will like, and like the gamers will like, but then the actual challenge comes from design for a 45-year-old mom who's sitting at home and she needs a chair. And like yes, their design sense is not that elaborate, but it's like sometimes it's very particular. You need to make a product that will be popular. That's why a lot of stuff that's timeless, like the popular, the good designs, and that like I might be talking out of my ass. I don't know, but like that's just my opinion. That's just like my opinion, man.
No, man,
Whatever.
you're,
Yeah.
you're good. Yeah, exactly.
Like it's that's why all of that design is minimal, because the more features you have, the more it's likely that people will not like those features. So it's down to absolute like minimum core design. It's where those basic principles, universal principles of design, will matter. They rarely matter with when you're trying to, and like I have nothing against like super detailed mechs. I'm like, you know, I like to super detail. Like I detail the fuck out of things as well, but I'm trying to get away from that. Like I'm trying to grow up a little bit, and like only detail it where it matters. Like we talked about it with Vouter as well. Like the
Right.
one of the biggest challenges is to design an absolutely minimalistic uh, like piece of artwork, and
Yeah.
and try to not like let people say that it's just complete bullshit. Make them inspired and whatnot.
Yeah, it's difficult, man. Also, also fun. I don't know. It's kind of that's what I love so much about Fusion. Like the designing in real, all that stuff helps though. Like I feel Fusion helps with getting to that level because of how easy it's being made for you to design in accurate measurements. To make those assemblies to make sure that things fit. You can look through your stuff with that, inspection or whatever
Mm-hmm.
it's called.
Oh,
It all,
let's do that. Hold on. The people need to know. People
yeah,
need to see this.
it's so cool.
Section analysis.
Yeah, that's the one.
Let's do section analysis from this face. Um, boop, like that. Cutaways for days.
Yeah.
Let's see how
Wait, let's
things intersect when what they made it from inside.
yeah. See, that's so cool.
Yeah,
And
see,
it's
like
I
my
mean,
my shit
it's
is
perfect.
intersecting as hell.
I use that for 3D printing so much because it really showed me everything I needed, to see
Mm-hmm.
whether stuff was gonna get filled up with resin or whatever, whether the clearances were right. It's great. It's a really nice feature.
Not only you can do like first of all, this is a cool illustration by itself,
Yeah,
because you know how like you wanna mimic those technical illustrations, the cool ones that you see. You're like,
yeah,
this is literally here. Like you don't have to do anything.
yeah.
Plus, you can pick absolutely any face, so you don't have to have like front and back. It'll be like this. Ooh, so good. This is like a brain scan.
Yeah,
This is actually exactly
it's
what brain
awesome.
scan does, like the MRI.
Yeah,
And then you get this. It's funny, but you get this inspiration from this as well, because it's these the relationship between shapes like this. Just take this as a plane, right? This is a cool piece of design. You can translate that into pattern or an ornament somewhere else. Like for example, when you try to like add a detail on a flat surface, this would be my inspiration. Like this would be like a square with an opening in it, with some bolt or like a screw in there, some sort of God damn it, with some sort of connector.
yeah.
So yeah, um, lots of stuff that when your stuff to look technical, it's here. It's where everybody like is getting their inspiration from. Um, let's see.
Yeah. I just like how Fusion in general looks like. I make screenshots just of like what you showed, and
Mm-hmm.
just of the workspace, because I just like the look already. So yeah, of course, taking it into Keisha is next level. But me also loving line art and stuff. Sometimes I'm like, ah man, this is good. Just take a
Oh yeah,
screenshot.
like that was a good question from Design for Entertainment. Can you export that at various stages and use it as animation? You can totally make this into a GIF. Probably not animation because um, it's not really like physical what you're doing. The section analysis is like an instrument to analyze, but you can imitate this by creating a section like those planes like I did before, and then literally like splitting your thing into like 100 layers and
Yeah.
exporting those layers one by one, and then you can use that for animation. The opportunities are endless. Like I know Ash uses this for a UI design because he just like literally can go into sketches, and the sketch tools. Oh, like it's too. We'll bring your volume higher as well. Hold on, because people don't hear you. So
Oh, okay.
you're, and I'll make myself a little less and more of you. Um, like the sketch tools in Fusion are extremely like comfortable and good to use. For example, plus it's all you can make them connected as well, like dimensions connected. It takes so long to get this done in Photoshop. It's
Yeah.
but here you can do let's see. Like it literally takes no time for me to start designing, and then you
Yeah.
can export this as where's the fillet? You can export this uh, in SVG in like and in Illustrator format AI. I guess you can convert SVG to Illustrator, but
Mm.
I know it works like because it works the other way as well. You can start your design in Illustrator if that's what you're working with, if that's what you're comfortable with, and then bring it here and just say you bring it here and it looks like this flat after converted. You just boom, and it's a solid piece that you just did. And you like that's the beauty. You can now take this piece and go ahead and print it, and
Yeah.
it will work. Like and that feeling when you cross the dimension from your computer monitor to real world and you're holding this in your hand. I don't even know how to explain this. Like
Yeah.
it's literally unexplainable.
It's fucking awesome, man. That feels like next level stuff to me. Not like better, but just like that weird, yeah. Like all of a sudden having a thing that you design in your hand is insane.
Mm-hmm. And like to think of it, it used to take uh, like first years then months to get to that stage. You know, because rapid prototyping didn't exist in manufacturing before.
Yeah, it makes stuff that we couldn't just wouldn't have been able to do. Now you can do easy peasy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's uh it's
I
an
mean,
awesome time.
it's magic, like straight up. I don't know how CAD works. Sometimes I do think that I know, but it turns out I don't.
Doesn't
Um,
matter, man. As long as it works, as long as it sort of does. Sometimes through a couple of different ways, I guess. You have to figure out how to make a little thing work. But there's so many ways to do stuff in Fusion that if Fusion says no to one way, then usually you can, with those tools, you can find a detour to end up with what you want,
definitely, definitely.
which is
It's
very nice.
I think there was like a video on YouTube previously where one of the evangelists from Fusion was saying, I think it was Brian Rep or somebody. He was like, "How many ways do you guys know to create a box in Fusion?" and it was like turns out it's like more than 6 ways to create a box. So
Man.
if it's more than 6 ways to create a box, then there's definitely more than 6 ways to create a design. Just
Yeah.
so many opportunities. Let's see. The guy, somebody's asking, hyperspace beast. Sounds like a Marvel villain. Now, if somebody told you, "Hey, can you retopo this?" Would you? Would I retopo this like for fun? No. Would I
Hell
retopo
no.
this for work? If I have to, I've done this for work. Like I've done, I've retopoed scans and CAD work in Industrial Light and Magic. So things like the things that you need to do, you just do them. It doesn't matter. Is it the right way though? Like if you can just build this from scratch, probably not. But if you want this to be accurate to manufacturing or something, or if it's easier for you to do this first as a sketch, um, it's like production is a whole different layer. This layer is such a like branch off, as in it doesn't go into production. This layer is about real life, and production is about imitating real life. So they don't connect. It's like all those like elements or like stages of matter. One can sometimes transition into the other, but sometimes the transition is only one way, and sometimes like transition is both ways. Sometimes it cannot even transition. Like
Mm.
uh, sometimes once the matter is soft, it cannot transition back into like hard surface and stuff. So like it's a weird analogy, but like that's the best way I can describe it. Because polygon modeling has been uh, created to imitate real life. This software is to like make kind of like things in real life. Do you know what I mean? So this is
Mm.
not an imitation in a way. But
Yeah.
is it possible to retopo this? Absolutely. Will it look good? Yes. It depends on your retopoing skills. Is there anything like that will prevent you from retopoing it? No. Like you just export, import, retopo. Will it take time? Yes, but it depends on how much are you thinking about production in the stage of modeling and fusion. Like if we're talking about, let's do another one. If we're talking about okay, let's make a design that for retopoing. Let's make this box. Will it be hard to retopo this box? No, because it doesn't have any features. Will it be hard to retopo a box like this? Probably no. Still pretty easy. Um, and then we go into this fusion shadow realm of magic and voodoo, and we start doing stuff like let's offset this. Is it as easy to do this in polygon modeling? Still, I would say yes, but then we go into like chamfers, and then will it be easy to retopo like this piece of work, and then you just continue complicating your design to a point where you have put yourself in the corner in terms of retopoing because you just went way too far, like in an unnecessary way. With your design, you will. There's a reason why old designs look the way they look. I'm talking about StarCraft, um, more or less common things that have been inspired by like designs from the 90s and 2000s. They are that design is using the language from polygon modeling. You will never be able to think in polygons. I mean, you probably will, like it's a strong statement, but you're unlikely to think to use CAD logic for design in polygon modeling and vice versa because your tools dictate the way that you do your design. Basically, a lot of old designs look like a bunch of extruded polygons, and then a lot of sharp edges, self-intersecting shapes. Fusion will rarely let you have self-intersecting shapes. It's like unheard of. I mean, you can like, but you know it's not gonna print. That's for damn sure.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, like at this point, like in 2 minutes, I'm taking this um, design to a point where it's gonna be extremely difficult to model from scratch in polygon modeling that fast. Like it's not overall, it's just gonna be like slower. Um, but at the same time, it's still gonna take time to retopo this. It's still way too complicated for something as like I won't use this as a piece of like part of a scope on a bigger rifle design because that's why it looks so good from Fusion, so detailed, so many like little intricacies and how it looks and stuff. And in polygon modeling, this stuff will take much longer, like arguably.
Yeah.
Um,
In Fusion, there's no excuse to not put, stuff like that in there, or like little holes
yeah, because
in. Yeah.
your final goal is to just render this, and to just
Yeah.
render this, you don't need to do anything special. You just put it in a keyshot.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it really depends on your final goals. You always have to keep those in mind. What is it that you're designing for? Um, and then Boolean operations. Like I just did like a bunch of Boolean operations in a row, and like see like this connector or whatever doesn't take time. So that's why it's
Yeah.
rapid prototyping in manufacturing. At the same time, funny enough, it's rapid prototyping in concept art. It's like it makes your concept art much faster. Um,
Yeah.
you've seen people. I've seen people concept vehicles in Fusion on YouTube. Absolutely. Uh, those people usually come from CAD background, like Elias and Katya, where working with splines is their um, like that's their game. It's not mine. I'm slowly learning how to model with splines properly. It's just a whole different realm inside of this shadow realm. It's like we need to go deeper. This is uh, instead of Inception, this is Infusion. Uh, like you just go levels and levels deeper. Always something more to learn. And once you start modeling with splines, the way I showed, like connecting those and patching, there's so many rules that I don't know. That's why I never teach that, or I don't teach that yet because I just don't have enough knowledge. I do have enough knowledge about solid body modeling. That's what we're doing. Let's see. As long as it's one part is easy, but when it's over 10 complex parts, it can be a nightmare. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Like if this is just a small part of the scope, clearly the whole scope is super complex, and then you retopoing, just do like you retopoing this fillet on the edge. Come on, it's gonna take time. Um, let's see. Um, Go
Yeah.
manipulation, please. I don't really know what you mean by manipulation. Spline modeling is like Rhino, right? Yeah. Rhino is more like again, people working in Rhino are gonna hate me, but to me, Rhino is like more programming than modeling. You have to know all the formulas that it's like parametric modeling. So basically, you don't even have to fucking look at the screen to model in Rhino. You just code your images, right? It's all about like programming the patterns and stuff like that. And yes, you can also like visually model this, but it's more about knowing a lot of math, a lot of things that like I don't even touch. Um, Fusion in that respect is a lot easier, but you can actually watch how people model in Rhino, like Rhino, Grasshopper, all of those, and then just apply the same principles because Fusion has enough of visual tools to get you maybe 20% there. It's not going to be parametric. I mean, it is parametric. It's not going to be like fully calculated where you make a design and then you change one thing and it will propagate through the rest of the pattern. It's not there yet, but you can do a lot of manual work to mimic that, the grasshopper looks and the rhino looks, and it will still look very, very decent because both are working with splines. You just need to be able to break down what's happening in the screen on the screen in Rhino and in Grasshopper. That's actually how you learn. Like Wouter, if you're listening still, if you haven't fallen
Yeah, yeah.
asleep,
No,
uh,
I'm here. I'm
like
paying close attention.
uh, like the next step is like watching other people model in CAD in other CAD softwares and trying to mimic and adopt workflows, because that will because the what I teach comes from nothing. It's like I just came up with this workflow. It doesn't exist anywhere else almost. It's taking bits and pieces from here and there from polygon modeling and from CAD modeling, and you just combine it together inside of Fusion. Just like I'm talking about the logic and stuff,
Mm.
but to learn actual like a proper way to model a car, and like we're talking about those, how people just build the profile throughout all the splines, like with the splines, and then just loft
Mm.
everything, and it looks fucking insane. uh,
Yeah.
there's there's a lot to learn there, and you can mimic all of that in Fusion as well, so it can help you push yourself into learning more tools, because what I usually teach is just model tab, then there's sculpt tab, which is completely different for people who haven't seen this. This gets even crazier because this. Oh shit! Why am I not seeing this? What
And
happened?
now there's also the sheet metal tab.
Yeah,
I
it's
saw.
like it's more for people who are into manufacturing. Like
Mm.
you rarely need sheet metal, really, like because it's just not what we need in concept art.
Yeah.
But let's see, why was I not able to see the what I was modeling? Oh, there you go. That was a glitch. So like the sculpting is we do talk about sculpting in the class, but it's also a completely different beast where it looks like a subdivided version of polygon modeling, like that, because if you change the display mode, this would be your polygon modeling. This is what it would look like, and then when you sub D it like that, it was Alt 3 for people curious about shortcuts. Um, that's what it would look like, So
Mm.
you can apply your regular polygon modeling logic here, and it works like extruding. Just don't expect much from it. Like it's still not polygonal modeling, but it will take you there because once you convert it to solid bodies, now the fun begins with all the boolean cuts and things that you absolutely cannot do anywhere else.
Yeah. That's so much fun to keep doing, to just
I,
cutting holes and
I
stuff.
know. I
You know,
said
like
I
an
say this a lot. Like I say, like just turn it into Swiss cheese.
yeah.
Just add like 50,000 holes in there.
We lay the shit out of everything, and those chamfers. It's gonna look sweet.
Yeah. Plus, like, I mean, every time I teach something about fusion, I'm showing my way, but it's really just enough to learn about the tools and then start building your pipeline in a way.
Yeah.
Just you will realize that you will find yourself using certain tools more and more, and then combining certain operations in certain patterns that you just find it like useful, and this will become part of your style in a way. Like my
Yeah.
style, like you can see that in the way I model here. Like it's a lot of a very particular order of fillets and chamfers, but for somebody else it would look different. Oh, and for people also who are not very familiar with why cat is so sick, let's do this. Well, I'm gonna select these faces that belong to just this particular feature. Press delete. Then I'm gonna take this. Press delete. It's gonna say fuck off. I'm sure because I should have deleted the chamfer first. Let's see. I already I can predict stuff.
Yeah, after a
You
while,
like you
Fusion
know
shows itself.
exactly like you like Fusion is very particular about like how you do like order of things. It also it's funny how uh, Fusion changed the way I organize things in real life because
Mm.
Fusion makes you very particular, almost like OCD about stuff in terms of I have to do this first and then that first and then that
Yeah,
second. Yeah, I think I
but I love that though. Like, and also that insane timeline, man. You can just, yeah, it's kind of something you have to figure out, but you kind of can add stuff or remove stuff earlier. Doesn't always work, but if you plan it a little bit,
mm-hmm.
you can customize so much, which is so useful. I really love that timeline feature as well.
While it's loading or while it's thinking, I'm gonna answer a couple of questions. Is there any way
Mm.
to perform generative design in Fusion? Uh, yes and no, because I don't know enough to say like exactly. I know that you can use in like there's a command prompt where anything you would manually type in as a command like as a code in Python in Rhino, it would work here as well because it's just programming. Any of this is programming. So if you understand the basics of generative design, this has the tools. Not exactly grasshopper level, but again, same principles, I'm sure. So like yes and no. And then what is the
Mm.
workflow if you would like to build a 3D scene? Do you export to Maya and texture and build there? So like I said, I would not recommend using Fusion for regular 3D. I'm always advertising uh, what I teach as teaching it for concepting, um, because again, you will need to retopple all of that to be able to get any sort of coherent UVs. The problem is not in geometry as much as it is in UVing, getting the UV texture space and painting. So the final results from Fusion are most likely. I think I fucking killed it. Uh, the the final results from Fusion are um, always flat images, basically, or
Yep, there it goes.
like animations, stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, I'm gonna just do the same thing real quick. I was just showing that it has some like magic in terms of how it understands what a feature is, like what's an opening, what like a hole, what features it has on top, etc., etc. So a lot of times when you're having something complex, you can just click the face, delete it, click this, delete it, you fixed it. It's really easy. That's what I was trying to show before I embarrassed myself in front of you. Let's see.
That's Fusion solved for
I,
crashing.
I know. Can you model jewelry and rings and make prototypes for molds? Absolutely. I've been doing molds for the past half year with my friend, and Vouter does that as well.
Yep.
And it's if you understand mold making, you can start it right now. Like go download it. But like if you don't, if you're just trying to get into it, because mold making is it's very particular about like material and whether you're using silicone and how it shit connects and pores and stuff like that. Lots of tutorials on mold making. All of that is possible in Fusion. Um, and for jewelry, clearly, like because this, let's see again, my favorite tool, inspect. This ring is 556 millimeters long, so 56 centimeters. I don't know in inches. My favorite system is metric, and anybody working in manufacturing uses metric. So forgive me, my American friends, but measuring shit in inches is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is 5/16 of an inch.
Yeah.
How about it's fucking 60 millimeters? There are no decimals or anything. I'm sorry. Like you, it's so easy. The only country in the world that doesn't use metric.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, you can like let's say you want to do a ring. You measure your finger. Um, you start with like I mean probably if you're doing a ring, you're starting in sculpt mode, which is a separate conversation. But regardless, even sculpt mode has measurements. So if your like finger for the ring is 60 millimeters in diameter, for example, like if you're Hulk, you just create that to start. You can also import your scan of your finger and match that perfectly, because like imagine you would have a scan of the finger inside. You will just have enough divisions in the ring, and you can start matching like that, like perfectly to the scan, like with all the intricacies on the finger and stuff like this. Or there's also like match functions here, where you can pull to a shape, just a lot of stuff. And then of course it gets more interesting when you decide to add your designs to the ring and to the jewelry. Like you will start with a basic shape. Let's say like something something crazy like this, like some kind of cool looking ring. And that would be the base shape. You convert it, and then you will need the inside of your ring to be just add more coolness to it. Basically, like I don't think this is symmetrical, but it's okay. Just want to take this design to somewhere more interesting. Just make a cut. So now you have a flat surface in there. You can also fillet the edges. Like also the beauty of it is like it's not only for 3D printing, it's clearly for CNC. So like you can make this into metal right away. You just need to know how to program for CNC. That's a separate conversation, like things that I have no idea about. But people use that all the time. That's what people use it for. That's what Fusion is made for those small, like manufacturing needs. You know,
Yeah.
especially custom stuff where like molding, yes, but like small batches as well. Let's see.
Also, again,
Yep.
3D printing, not necessarily to Fusion, but if you're doing jewelry design in Fusion, you can of course 3D print this even in that wax material, you know, so you can just put it in a mold that's ready for
Oh yeah, you can do a
casting
positive.
silver or
Yeah,
gold.
you can do a positive and then do a negative.
Yeah.
So yeah, like this is something that you can totally do. Uh, let's see. Four skill process command. Okay, we're over that. What are the pros and cons of capturing, not capturing design history? That's a good question. Um, so I've been capturing the design history for this particular ring. If I realize that the diameter of the finger was in fact not 60 millimeters and it wasn't Hulk, and it was only 10 millimeters, we're gonna go back in design history. We don't have to undo. We'll go back and edit the original feature, and we will take the ring, edit form, and pull it by changing it by that amount of millimeters to this, let's say. Just as an example, I mean, it would be a different process. And then finish shape. Well, I made a cut, so let's see. Maybe it's something more clear to understand. Let's see, maybe something like that. Whatever, changing shape. you go back and this updates the shape, right? So you only need to go back and change whatever you needed to change: the diameter of the fillet, the chamfer, the size, the shape. It works to a certain point, it works to a certain degree, so
Yeah.
you gotta treat it carefully. Design history is literally what it says it is. Um, like going back in time, the butterfly effect. If you step on a butterfly, everybody's fucked up in the present. Everybody has dinosaur hands.
Yeah, their
So
arms are chopped off or whatever.
yeah, so we have 56 genders, um, all of that. So instead of two. Uh, so even for me, Russian, this is very interesting streaming. Metric is good for doing math. Imperial is used for everyday things. Make a wall 10 feet long. I walk about 10 feet. I can see how big the wall is.
No, man.
I mean,
It's just metric, dude.
no, it's fine. It's like it's kind of true. Like, oh, like how far is this thing away? Oh, it's like 100 feet away. But like, of course, we can get more ridiculous when we like, like British people measure things in stones.
Yeah, but I mean, make a wall 2 meters long. Walk about 2 meter. I can see how big the wall is. What do you mean? 10, oh, 10 feet? Like 10, you're gonna walk the 10, put your feet like behind each other?
Yeah,
How,
it's
every feet is different too? Or is that something I don't understand from the
no,
Imperial thing?
I mean, it's an eternal battle. It's like asking, what's better. But seriously,
Probably, yeah.
seriously
Each
though,
his own.
it's definitely easier. It's easier. Like it depends on how you grew up, right? Like if you grew up
Yeah.
with metric system, you understand metric. If you grew up with imperial, you understand imperial. But like certain systems are used in certain manufacturing processes. So if we're talking about jewelry, and a lot of things are done in metric. If we're talking about something else, a lot of things are done in metric. Um, Plus, you can always convert. Oh, and like of course, Fusion is not stupid that way. You can change your system here. You can just be doing it in inches or in millimeters. You can change that all in settings. So
Hmm.
it doesn't really matter. Uh,
I think you can even type, like inch, even if you're working in metric. I think I tried that one time because I took over. You just type in behind it, and then it'll convert it to the centimeters.
uh,
I think that works. I'm not sure.
let's see. Maybe like I know you can convert in like in settings.
Hmm.
But yeah, like Fusion is fairly smart about it. No, it doesn't look like it. But I also may have some like very particular settings. Hey,
Okay,
David.
gotcha.
Um, okay, so let's see. What else? What do you have? Like any questions about why Fusion will help you, or like, how will it help you in your concepting? Like I'm telling you straight
Hmm.
up, like it's not gonna help you. Like anybody watching the stream, it's not gonna help you in your production as much as you think. Like oh my god, I'm gonna get access to all these booleans. Like yeah, but like you're also responsible for retopoing that. So good luck.
Yeah.
Um, so like yeah,
Yes.
if you have any questions in terms of like how can it benefit you, we can answer that. If not, I feel like I definitely showed enough to at least like pique your interest in
Hmm.
Fusion overall, like regardless whether or not you take the class. I mean, hopefully you do take the class because it's a lot of information compressed, and like I've worked a long time. Like I've been working like since the beginning of the year on this, and just a lot of information in such short class from
Yeah, for sure.
zero to doing whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, always, it's up to you how far you take that knowledge. Like I give you like a helping hand in terms of how to start and how to get from zero to a certain level, but then all the like with any school, all learning happens at home.
Hmm.
The reason tutorials are helpful and the reason school in real life is helpful is because it's a method to organize your learning time or your studying. Uh, it's not gonna make you know things, like you're still fully responsible for understanding and for trying to understand, for learning stuff, and all of that happens on your own time. So every tutorial that I make, every tutorial that you just see out there, is meant to help you organize the knowledge and be able to process it. Like it's like the mama bird, chewing the food and like I I'm talking about vomiting tutorials back into people. But
It makes sense, man.
yeah, it's true. Like it's processed information. It helps you digest it because it's already digested. It's been through the prism.
I see, I see.
It's been through the prism of through the like the digestion of an artist who does that, then through an artist who followed this tutorial like you,
Mm.
which you also have your own perspective on it. So it's like digested several different ways, you know.
Yes. So you're the mama bird who pukes in all
In
of our mouths,
in
and
in
we're
in,
like
in this
swallowing that your puke.
in this regard, it's like we're definitely talking about knowledge, so it's like it's better to think about it
I'll
as
take it.
knowledge. But it helps you grow and be better. That's the point.
Yeah,
Food,
man.
food for thought, right? And this like, um, and also like I myself am planning to take another Learn Squared course. I don't know if I can be an apprentice there, or like it's probably too late because the course is out. But I'm super interested in concepting architecture because I see that it's like one of the latest courses that they released. It's helpful for me because I only need the theory now. Like I don't really care that it's in Cinema 4D.
Hmm.
That I will easily substitute with Fusion. But what I'm interested in the course in is the thinking. I want the theory. I want the like his approach to concepting. It's like I don't care about the technical part as much. So I think it would be beneficial because it's good to be inspired by other like parallel industries, by parallel areas of the same industry even.
Yeah.
Learn from architecture, learn from other types of manufacturing, and just apply it everywhere. Because entertainment has always been and will always be extremely artificial. It's always meant to mimic real world, and everything that you do for entertainment is an impression of the real world. So the more you're inspired by real world, the better. If you're, we had this conversation, but like it's good to repeat this when we're talking about ArtStation or like not just ArtStation in particular, any website that collects artwork.
Hmm.
If you go there to be inspired, it's like the natural selection and like evolution. You as a being that's trying to evolve, drawing from the same pool of DNA every time. So your like projected uh, survival and your like projected improvement is only limited by that pool that you're drawing from. So
Yeah.
that mix of DNA, like everybody's, I don't want to say steal, but like everybody's inspired by everybody from the same group of people. It's gonna digest into something like if you're mixing all the colors together, you just get like shitty brown. You never get like a nice, colorful purple or whatever.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, we
it's
talked about you going to the Grand Canyon. Like, just,
yeah.
I mean, I don't, like everyone to each, everyone does it in their own way where they get their reference from, but that real life stuff, like going on a trip like that and like having that personal experience is just very. I mean, yeah, I agree in that sense that I like to do it in that way uh, too. Like to
Like be inspired by anything but art.
yeah. But then on the other hand, to be honest, with the art, yeah, exactly. To be as by a trip or a hiking trip, that's usually for me like, also where the best ideas come.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also like in art, even if it is inspired by the real world to accept the fantastical nature of it. I think we
Mm-hmm.
talked about that too, like in games or movies. I actually like the fantasy of it. So I try to embrace that in the design process as well. That even even if you went, for example, to the Grand Canyon, then if you design something for a game, it can be a lot more fantastical than
Oh yeah,
or out there.
what I think what you're trying to say is design and entertainment needs to be informed by the real world as much as possible, rather than like I can take that Grand Canyon and turn it into a landscape on Mars or whatever, and
Mm.
I know that I've experienced it. I have a lot more insight into how do I convey that feeling to the user, to the end user, and
Yeah.
like totally like I get inspired by a lot of stuff, and the less I'm inspired by the same like mechs and guns, the better. I mean,
Mm.
with this gun, clearly this design is almost 100% Steyr uh, AUG, right? Like it's like a slight shitty modification on it. So like this design is not from scratch. This design is of a real prop. But when we're talking about design in a pure form, and there was a question on the stream about it, like it's hard to teach that, and you have to have certain years behind your back to start teaching just pure design.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I also think it's so personal. Everyone does it in their own. Like, okay, we like to go into nature, for example, to get inspired there.
mm-hmm,
I can totally see some people that do, like, I mean, for me, I also check ArtStation almost every day. It's
mm-hmm,
definitely very inspiring. It's all those different, yeah, combination, and I think that's one of the things that also informs your own style. Like that how you look for reference, where do you get your inspiration. I love that that is such a personal journey, basically, that
mm-hmm,
that informs what you make, in return. Like, are you interested in, for example, super realistic stuff, then your work will probably be more realistic for it. That's what I kind of meant with saying that I like the fantastical stuff too. So even if I design something that's not very realistic, it's also kind of embracing that medium, like the video game. Like you can have some crazy weapon that shoots, that you couldn't build in real life, maybe yet, or maybe not even at all. But depending on what kind of game it is, that could
mm-hmm.
still be super fun, or valid.
No, totally. There's another question for poly conversion. I guess it's Moy 3D because Vitaly Bulgarov uses it. Like yes, I use Moy 3D a lot to convert. If you don't have to get it because I mean yeah you do have to pay for it. If you already have ZBrush, you can convert it in ZBrush from STL. It does a good job as well. But generally, yeah, Moy 3D. When modeling anything like a gun or a mech, do you make different components and assemble them later, or you make the whole thing as one unit? We had this in the very beginning of the stream. Even this gun is separate components. So Fusion can link all these separate files together in one assembly. Then you can export this, and then it can update them. So if I go back to my scope separately, open it up, update something, and then update it in this file, just click like a button. It will like if say I needed an opening here, I'll just do it in a separate file and propagate it, the change here. Beautiful. Like the way it's designed for production is amazing. But
Yeah.
yeah, generally, of course, like even Valder, even you, when you did your rifle, you like
Hmm.
went overboard with components in terms of, like every little. But you did like the real manufacturing thing. Anything that's separate in real life is a separate component. So like that's why a gun has like 200 pieces. It's not just one solid mesh.
but I wanted to be able to have the option to 3D print it at one point. So that was kind of the
Mm-hmm.
rule I gave myself in terms of, I guess some sort of realism or something to tie it to, you know.
Yeah, the result, the desired result definitely shapes your production pipeline.
Yeah,
Um, I was also gonna say if you're trying to do the mech, um, it will start to like depends on your hardware as well. I noticed kind of like a dramatic improvement in speed with a different hard drive. Like
yeah,
everything reads instantly, but I there is a certain limit in terms of okay, even your video card that displays things on the screen. It doesn't make sense to keep everything revealed. Like you can hide certain components, certain parts at different times. So when you start to notice some lag in viewport, I think it's about time to split things into different parts. Plus, if you're doing a mech, let's say two legs, two arms, one head, one torso, it probably is worth only doing one leg, saving it as a component, and then start a new assembly, assemble that in
yeah.
there, and just like you have better opportunity for switching stuff up and editing this without opening the whole like heavy file because things will get heavy like at some point. I've seen that heaviness for sure. Um,
And the switching stuff is the assembly stuff is so cool. If you have a main body and you can just work on those legs separately, it's such a cool way to add new legs onto a robot or kind of
mhm.
customize it. I really love that. Uh,
Just
I
yeah,
try to use
you
that.
have to think about it as like folders or like boxes in your if in physical world. Just like you assemble stuff here the way you would almost the way you would assemble it in real life. Sometimes, of course, for a mech, you just it doesn't mean you will have like a million parts. You
Yeah,
make shortcuts on the way. Like your leg will be just one part or like two parts, including like a knee in between or something. But it's all about your logic, how you organize your scenes. There's nobody's telling you how to do it. It's completely up to you.
yeah.
There was another one I know. Technical stuff, but I suck at design. Is there a cost-effective class that only teaches design hardcore? If you know about this class, let me know. I'd like to see the link because it's like that thing. People ask like, okay, there's so many tutorials about ZBrush. Why would I want a different tutorial on ZBrush? Because it's a different person's perspective, and it's always something new. And the same for Fusion. Like, oh, like you've done a Mold 3D class. Why are you doing this? Because I've learned new shit, and then because uh, I have things to share. Same with design. I know design a little bit. I'd like to think, but then it
Mhm.
doesn't prevent me from watching more and more tutorials about design as long as I find value in them. It's all about do you see value in what you're about to pay for? Like I see value in that concept architecture. Like, do I need it? Like, am I going to be an architect? No. Am I even going to use Cinema 4D? No. But I still see the value in it because I know that like I'm willing to pay for that piece of information that will help me make my designs more informed, and then just use new tools, and they will push me in my development, in my like growing my skill set inside of Fusion 360. Just piecing like design sense bit by bit. And then the answer to that question in the chat was like, I think I have the same problem, blah blah blah. I think you develop your design when you create new, real stuff and get inspired by it. Like it's true, you will develop your own sense of design. Like you kind of like how artists look for validation on ArtStation and like online. Like you the second you make your design, you're looking for validation by posting it on Instagram. I fucking do that all the time because I need to know if where I'm going with my design has general public appeal. That's how you test. You test like bit by bit. Like, is my design good? Like, am I doing okay? Because if you know, like, if you spend 10 years just behind your computer and then like don't look at anything online, you just come up to the world and be like, "Hey, world, I came up with this cylinder. How great is it?" And it's like, dude, like cylinders. are from 1989. You know, you have to stay up to date on stuff, and you have to be valid with like try at least try to stay keep your style contemporary. I think just because you're trying to find validation of your designs in the
Mm.
now. Like you're not making for the past. Sometimes you're making for the future. So if you're doing that, you have to think several steps ahead, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Designing is such a full a process that will continue forever, and it can be so daunting at first.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I feel that that as shitty as it sounds, that's just something that you have to start with and keep working at, and that will get better and better. But it is so scary because at first when you design stuff, it just sucks. But then when you keep, even like I feel like you're better than me. I'm like arrogant that I just post my stuff and like this is it. Like I don't want your fucking validation. Like this is what I want. But
it's good to have that
you
streak
know
as
what?
well. Like, don't tell people what like don't let people like ruin your dreams. You know.
No, but I know what you mean. Like we want people to like it, but then we also want to do what
Yeah.
we are. It's a balance between the artist and the commercial illustrator, I guess.
Yeah.
But starting with that, I mean, it's such a great feeling. I think we're at the point where we get work, so we know that something is at least going sort of okay. But we all start at that point where design is such a daunting thing to even start with, and it's scary. And at the beginning, you're just gonna suck. But the more you discover your own taste, I feel the more you do stuff. It's like, oh, this I like, this I don't like. Then you sort of start creating your own design sense. But that's at least how I see it with developing that. It's just a continuous process. It'll probably go on forever.
Yeah, like
Uh,
I also like the question was like more about like the core stuff.
I see.
That's why like we have the books and everything.
Yeah.
You wanna walk through the whole thing from scratch, like how people started design, read about
Yeah.
it, how it developed, where it's going. Like if you don't know your past, you won't be able to predict your future. You know, in
Mm.
terms of design. Says, "Hi, I'm learning Fusion right now." Like right now, dude, cool. um, it's amazing, but I still
The
have
class is not
problems.
out yet. How can you be learning
I know.
Fusion
Stop learning. Wait for the class.
already?
It's amazing, but I still have problems with Retopo. Oh my god. Retopo is like a pain in the ass when talking about Fusion. How does everyone else handle this part? Everyone else either doesn't retopo and just renders it, and then like doesn't UV. So that's what I do: render in Keyshot. Or if you want to retopo, then just you know embrace the fact that Fusion is not made for that, and you're going against the grain with it, and you're retopoing something that's not meant to be retopoed.
Mm.
At least that's how things are right now. Unless unless they finally come up with a nice converter to quads where you will be able to just remove the loops. But I don't see this happening too soon. There's an Autodesk soft that allows you to convert like trees to quads. Um, it looks good, but it's never work. It never works with hard surface. Um, Also, it just needs to be converted straight up from CAD to quads. Like, it's we need to bypass triangulation stage. Uh, 3D like 3D code and Blender. Like, yeah, you can retopo in there. You can use Topo Gun, whatever you want. Like Maya tools are really cool for retopoing. Although it's been a while since I did retopo because now I just started painting fundamentals. Yeah, that's nobody wants to do retopo. Retopo is a it's one of those things that will go away with time. It just in the next 10 years, I think we're still heavily attached to existing pipelines and stuff.
Mm.
So like UVs used to be a bitch, right? Right now, you're welcome. Right now, UVs is fairly easy to do. Like the headless UV layout, almost magic. It just does everything automatically, as long as you have quads.
Mhm.
It will do trees. It will unwrap it, but it's gonna be ugly and like all fragmented and stuff and a lot of work. But things are getting better. Like the the kind of like the prognosis for this is positive. People will always work towards automation, and just so happens that UVing and retopo and making the mesh production ready is a lot of manual work right now. But somewhere in the near future, it will change. Even
Man,
like if we're talking about that, like the design is becoming automated, like that simulation stuff that I showed, the
yeah,
shape optimization. Clearly, if we can fucking optimize shapes, we can optimize retopoing and topology and UVs. Like,
man. I'm just so happy hearing all of this that I never have to worry about that. The UV stuff and the retop, like the way your class is you never have to touch that as long as
yeah,
it's for concept or 3D printing or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly, exactly.
Uh, I guess the 3D, the production stuff is just a whole other beast, huh? Like I have
Yeah, oh
no,
yeah,
I don't.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, Well,
Uh,
the somebody's asking like I've been using 3ds for Itapo, but I guess I'll have to embrace Keyshot. Well, it depends. Like, what's your goal?
yeah,
If your goal is to have a flat 2D image rendered, you can say like fuck UVs and just do automatic UVs on everything. Deal with how it's like fragmented and stuff. You still can take CAD model into what's it called? Uh, the thing the Mari into Mari for texture painting.
okay.
You can still do that. It will do like all those automatic UVs. It will be applied. Yeah, it's just not optimized for in engine stuff. It's not
Mm.
optimized for VFX stuff either. You can still do that. I can unwrap this gun, no problem. It will look ugly as hell, but I will be able to do it. I will put it in because clearly UV and texturing is meant for real time render or like
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So if you're using Keyshot, then you will never have to worry about that. Very rarely will you use UVs in Keyshot. Like it's cool to use UVs in Keyshot for sure. You get much better results, but that's if you're initially doing the UVs.
yeah,
If you're coming from this, like the best application that I can find for Fusion 360 other than 3D concepting is 2D concepting, where it's what you do, right?
yeah,
You can overpaint that stuff easily. Uh,
yeah. I
it's
love that, man. That's great. Like you showed me that line render thing
mhm,
in Keyshot as well. It's awesome. You can just combine that with drawing.
exactly, and
It's great.
your sense of perspective and sense of 3D in general is informed by real geometry. Like
Yeah, it's correct. It saves so much time than to have to figure that stuff out. It's great.
if you're what is that like if you're not embracing that you're like you're not really smart. You're not usually like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
let's
or
paint.
you're really good. You're like
Well,
so good that you can draw that as
you
fast.
I don't think you're ever too good to not use the tools available for you readily, like easily. if
Yeah, I mean, it's just
if you're working on a huge scene that requires complex perspective, people in 2D have been using that like for the past 8 years or so.
yeah,
Just
man.
quick block out. Like, what's the
Exactly.
point? You know?
I use it wherever I can. And I think, you know what, as concept artist, now, for example, with Fusion, right? The final stuff I send out as a concept artist is a flat, is an illustration
Mm-hmm.
that is correct in 3D. And then on top of that, if they really want or really need it, I can say, look, I have a model that they'll have to remodel, but at least all the proportions and stuff will be correct. So I feel that's
Absolutely.
already such a plus to just the drawing that
Well,
it's
because Fusion is a design tool. It's not a modeling
yeah,
tool. It's so easy to retopo an existing design. but it's kind of hard to come up with a good design in just polygon modeling. You have to
Mm,
think a lot. Like there are some examples of great designers in poly, but most polygon modelers are usually modeling somebody else's design.
I see.
Like they follow a 2D concept. If, let's put it this way, they follow a 2D concept. It's not necessarily somebody else's. Sometimes it's their own. Sometimes they don't need that, and like there are amazing examples like guys like Tor Frick, the Wolfenstein
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
dude.
It's awesome.
He's insane. He's a pro, but not everybody's like that. You know, I cannot concept for shit in polygon modeling. My
Oh,
brain
same
doesn't
here.
work. Like I can model it, but this is more like this instrument is for design, sketching. This,
Yeah,
all the tools are geared towards let's make it happen. All that sculpting shit is great for design. It's
yeah.
design. If you were talking about manufacturing or like end product being a prop or a vehicle or whatever, just like in entertainment or in real life, design is meant or like concept is meant to inform the design, and it's very rarely when in real world you nail it on the first try. So you have several concepts, you figure out stuff in production, like all with even with 3D printing, all the tolerances and stuff, you figure that out along the way.
Mm,
So fusion is not the end tool that you will be like, oh, I modeled this gun, this is how it's gonna end up in the movie.
mm.
No, it's just an instrument. It's a part of the process. It's on the design side of the spectrum, not on production.
Yeah,
But for design, it's fucking amazing.
yeah. And you technically could three three D 3D print this guy, and it would look
Yeah,
exactly, like this. That's
it,
really awesome. Like as a prop or something,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. That's like
Uh,
a whole different story.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. I mean, yeah, for games, it's definitely not a production tool, but
It just so happens
yeah,
that like people usually think about 3D modeling only in terms of poly, because that's
I
where it
see.
comes up. But like 3D modeling is used in manufacturing and in everything else,
Mm.
and it's very uncomfortable to use poly modeling for manufacturing. That's why there's CAD.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to create something that fits perfectly in polygon modeling in terms of like scale
Yeah,
and tolerances? It's just not very accurate. I mean, it can be, but it's like
yeah, it can. Like I
you know,
tried before Fusion, I tried to do the 3D printing stuff in Modo, and you sort of can make it work, but it's such a hassle. And I found myself, but this is also because I suck at it, so I'm not a good example. But I found myself thinking, I won't do that little detail there because it's like too much work or something.
hmm
But in Fusion, you don't have that excuse at all. You can just punch holes and stuff, add little things
yeah,
until infinity, keep beveling stuff. It's just it's so easy that you don't have an excuse to take it to the max basically.
totally. Uh, well, I think we should wrap this up. We've had like a good 2 hour run. It's more than we've hoped for.
Yeah.
And we will have a different stream dedicated specifically to the course. So we will talk about that in detail. This is more like, hey, like if you wanted to learn about something new today, like here you go. But specifically about the class, we will have a different stream when it's ready. Hopefully very soon. Um, and yeah, you're welcome for the answers. I feel like you know a lot more. I the class is a lot more in detail than this. You know, we're just like skimming over the surface in terms of design and certain tools here. But that's why the class exists. Um, Again, thank you very much. And Wouter, thank you for joining me because I needed
Yo,
somebody to
of
talk
course.
to for sure. Um,
No biggie, man.
and I'll talk to you during the next stream then. And guys, thank you for joining. It was the questions were all very interesting, especially about Ritopo. I think I've said that word like 50 million times.
Yeah, a lot of Ritopo stuff.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Alrighty.
We're gonna go into the
See you guys
outro and
later.
we'll talk to
See
you
ya.
later. Bye bye.